from the Office of Admission, and I am so excited that everybody's here today. First off, congratulations to all the accepted students here. This was a particularly competitive admissions pool. You guys should be so proud. I'm really excited about this year's group of accepted students, having seen them in the reading process and the committee process, like an amazing group. And we are so excited for this class as it's developing, and we are super excited for our next academic year starting in the fall. So first, a few quick reminders before we get started. Number one, please put any questions that you have in the Q&A. I'm going to be peppering our panelists with questions, but I want to hear your questions and I want to feed some of your questions to them as well. So please put your questions in the Q&A. Second, closed captioning is available. Click that button at the bottom if you like. Let's start with some intros. I'm going to have our panelists introduce themselves with very quick intros, and then we'll get started with a question. Kevin, why don't you get us started with a quick introduction?
Sure. Hi, I'm Kevin Hamilton, and I'm a first-year student in the class of 2024. I'm from Chelmsford, Massachusetts, and I went to Chelmsford High School, and I am currently undecided in my major, but I'm planning on studying political science.
Hi, everybody. My name is Hannah Thompson. I'm a junior history major and studio art minor. I'm from Dover, Massachusetts, and went to Dover Sherburne High School. I'm excited to chat with you all tonight.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brianna Cummings. I'm from Franklin, Massachusetts, and I went to Franklin High School. I'm currently a junior, so class of 2022, and I'm a math and sociology double major with a Latin American studies concentration, and I'm on the pre-med track.
And my name is Sarah Petty. I am a professor in the chemistry department, but more importantly for all of you, I am going to be your class dean. So welcome. I'm excited to get talking with you tonight.
Professor Petty, why don't we start with you? Can you, I was talking about how excited I am for this group of admitted students. Can you tell me why this next year is going to be a particularly exciting year at Holy Cross?
Can I unmute myself? Yes, absolutely. Well, I mean, first of all, it's super exciting for me. This is my first time as a class dean, and I am so excited to be able to have this opportunity to mentor all of you. But for you, this is a particularly exciting time to be joining our community on the Hill. We have just opened our new wellness center. We are going to be opening our performing arts center very soon. And I think even more than all of that, what we have all been through in the last 12 months being apart is going to make us so incredibly grateful to be back together. I think we're going to see more students than ever at the games. I think we're going to see more students working together. I think it's going to be a really exciting time to join us.
Great. Let's start. I want to start with a quick conversation about Montserrat. That's a question that a lot of our accepted students have questions about because it's something maybe they learned about in the fall, but now it's become a lot more real now that they're accepted students. Kevin, can you tell me what your Montserrat seminar is and what that class has been like?
Absolutely. So I am in a Montserrat called Mathematics, Chaos, and Order. And it has been the best class that I've taken at Holy Cross so far. In the fall, I took, the class entailed kind of learning about the math behind voting and polling, and we looked at the election as a case study. So that was really interesting. And then this semester, we're taking a really different route than I've ever taken in a class. And so we're reading different pieces of literature and then looking at the mathematics that's embedded in the literature. So right now we're reading Alice in Wonderland, and we're going to be looking at logic in the coming weeks and how that sort of plays out in the book. So it has been excellent. As I mentioned, I took it in the fall as well because it's a full year course, and I have, you know, some of my best friends that I have made have come from Montserrat, and I think it's so special now that we're on campus that I'm able to see them, be in a class with them after having been on a Zoom call with them in the fall. So it has been a really awesome experience so far.
Kevin, what did you think when you saw the name of this seminar on your schedule? Like, what did you think you'd gotten yourself into, and how did that change once you got into the course and started seeing what it was really like? Well,
I was really excited. I I ranked or I chose 6 different courses when I was originally doing my course selection over the summer. And so then I was put into this mathematics, chaos, and order. And at first I was a little bit nervous. I didn't really know what the class was going to entail, but I was really excited. The course description sounded excellent. And from what I've read, I had a really difficult time choosing just 6 courses over the summer, as you know, to ultimately end up in one for Montserrat. And I have a lot of friends who I envy in a way. And but at the same time, I have had such a wonderful experience. The class is very relaxed. It's a little bit different than, you know, what a regular course might be, because it's, you know, part of it is about meeting people, you know, engaging with the professor, having a mentor in that professor, someone who you can always rely on, which has really helped. I feel so comfortable in that class and with the students. It has been a really great community, and now in the second semester as well.
How about you, Hannah? It's been a few years since you were in your Montserrat. Tell me what your Montserrat seminar was, and tell me what that experience was like for you, having the sort of the academic piece in the classroom and then the residential part in the dormitory.
Definitely, thank you. So my Montserrat was called The Science of Art and Color, and it was actually Professor Petty here was one of my professors for the course. Most Montserrats actually just have one professor that carries through for the whole year. I was lucky to have 2 different professors. Our first semester was in the science building, and with Professor Petty, we looked at the science side of color and all the chemistry that goes into that, and that was really interesting. And then in the spring semester, we moved to the art studio with Professor Rinklin and did more of a color theory piece of that. And actually throughout the entire project or entire semester, we were working on a project together where we would all around campus, or if we were off campus, pick up small pieces of plastic, any recyclables that we had, and collect all this colored plastic that we would then put into a large data sheet. And then by the spring semester, we took all the plastic that we had gathered on the streets or in our own recycling bins, and we actually made a mural in the science building. And that was really interesting because it kind of combined all the elements of the semester together. But like you said, there is a residential portion of Montserrat, and I think that's one of the most special parts because the program is really based in community building and helping all the first year students to get to know one another. So Montserrat, as you may know, is split into different clusters. So in each residence hall, there's a number of clusters that everyone in your Montserrat will live in that same building for the most part, I believe. But that works out really great because, as I said, the program is focused on community building. So you'll have different cluster events, whether they're just with your class or with your larger cluster. And it's fun when hopefully you're all back onto campus. You can walk together, you see Montserrat friends in the halls. And it's just another way you can work on homework together in the common room. It's another friendly face, especially in your first few weeks on the Hill. So it's a great experience. And like Kevin was saying, there is such an array of courses. I think mine is pretty high up there for interdisciplinary. We're taking art and science together. So there's a lot of different ways to combine all the different things you like with your Montserrat course.
Brianna, if you can remember back to that moment as you were a senior accepted to Holy Cross, you had an idea about what you wanted to major, and then you're picking a Montserrat seminar, and none of them are like called Intro to Pre-Med. They have elaborate titles that are often interdisciplinary. Can you talk about what that's like coming in as a first year student, having an expectation of what you think you might want to study, but then you're in a Montserrat seminar that may or may not be exactly what you think you want to study when you get to college?
Yeah, of course. So the best piece of advice I got coming into my first year before I chose my Montserrat class was not to think about Montserrat in terms of what you thought you wanted to major, but just read the descriptions and kind of pick anything that sounds interesting to you because they're all so different and they're all so interdisciplinary, and it's nothing like a class you've ever taken before. So I was in gender and everyday life, which was offered by the sociology department. And I had no idea what sociology was coming into college, and I had no idea I was going to end up majoring in it. But I was reading through all the descriptions, and it was kind of just anything that sounded like something I might want to talk about or something that would come with lots of cool campus events. They were things I put on my list. It was kind of like going online shopping, to be honest, when I was picking it out. But so I was reading through the descriptions, and I remember this one in particular. Um, the way that the description sounded, I knew we were going to be seeing lots of speakers on campus, but also that it was very contemporary and that we were going to be looking at a lot of like popular media stuff. Because we talked about how we socially define gender and how that has changed over time. And so we got to see and interact with a lot of really cool people who came to campus. I know I actually got to go to lunch with Brittany Cooper my first year, which was one of the coolest things I've done in my time at Holy Cross for sure. She wrote Eloquent Rage, highly recommend the book. But the other things we did where we would analyze toys and like watch commercials and talk about how they showed gender stereotypes. And it was a cool experience because it was learning that didn't necessarily always feel like learning. It just felt kind of like a conversation with a bunch of people you were getting close with and making friends with. So that's kind of how I chose my Montserrat, was I just kind of read all of them, and anything that sounded kind of cool I put on my list in no particular order, because honestly, I don't think that there's any Montserrat class that's truly not interesting, because they're all so different than taking like an intro biology course or like calculus, which are great in themselves. But the way that Montserrat is so interdisciplinary, it doesn't feel like hard work all the time, even though you're putting so much into it.
So some good insight here. And Professor Petty, I wonder if you can talk just a little bit about what it's like as a first year student to pick that first semester of courses. Obviously, Montserrat's going to be an element. So many students are really not sure about what they want to study in college. They might have favorite courses in high school, but how do first year students approach that thought process of signing up for that first round of courses for the first semester?
Absolutely. So I think the first thing that I would say to that is that you should definitely not feel alone in this. It is a difficult decision that you're making, but there's plenty of support for that. So what you will be hearing about as time moves on is our summer orientation program that is called Gateways. And as part of Gateways, you will get the opportunity to connect one-on-one with a faculty member who's going to help you through that process. So you're going to meet with them. It's going to be over Zoom, unfortunately, because we still want to make sure that we're keeping everyone as safe as possible. But in that conversation, you'll talk about the things that you're interested in, the things that you might want to major in, or things you're considering, possible careers that you might be interested in. They'll chat with you about things you've enjoyed about high school, things that you haven't enjoyed. They'll talk with you about the common requirements and things that you'll have to take at some point while you're here. And they're going to help you put together a series of classes that are going to set you on the right path. Now, one of those classes will be Montserrat, and they will certainly be available to talk with you about that as well. We generally recommend that you take 1 or 2 classes in something that you think you might want to major in. So that between those 2 and your Montserrat, that puts you at 3. And then that 4th class should really just be something that you're interested in, something that speaks to you on a different level. Maybe you've never had the opportunity to take political science, or maybe you had a really bad experience with a particular topic in high school, so it wasn't your favorite, but you think, I should give this another go. This is a different environment. And so that's always a good way to balance out your classes. But that advisor during Gateways will help you think about, should I be taking 1 or 2 science classes? Should I be taking a lot of classes that have papers? Do I really want to spend all of my weekends in the library doing research? Or would I rather spend my time in study groups, doing problem sets? What kind of things do I enjoy? So that's how where the help's going to come, at least as you get started. The second part of it is that you will be asked to complete a questionnaire. And as part of that questionnaire, you're going to list all of your Montserrat choices, but also list a couple of courses that you know you want to get started on, a couple of subject areas that are really speaking to you. And as part of the enrollment process, myself and some other colleagues at the college are going to sit down, and we're going to actually place you in one of the Montserrat and in one of the classes that we know you're really interested in taking. We're going to take that pressure off and make sure that you have 2 courses that you're absolutely excited about and that you want to get going with. And then a little bit later in the summer, we will open our enrollment, and you will be able to then pick 2 other classes to go along with those. But along the way, there's lots of people you can talk with. You can always reach out to me with questions. And I would encourage you to do that because it's a tricky choice. It is. The one thing I will say is that there are no bad choices. There is always time to change your mind. We encourage you to come in being very open-minded. So just because you've picked a chemistry class, and I'll choose that because you should all pick a chemistry class. Just because you picked a chemistry class doesn't mean you have to take another one later. It doesn't mean you can't become an economics major or a history major. And there's plenty of room for changing your mind once you get here.
So Professor Petty, you mentioned that our first Gateway series in June would be virtual. Can you just speak very quickly about what we know about the fall at this point and what the school's plan is?
Absolutely. So our plan at the moment is that we will all be on campus, that you will all be on campus, and that faculty will all be on campus. We are planning to hold all of our classes in person, provided that state regulations will allow us to do that in a safe manner. If we still have to wear masks, that's fine, we can do that. And so provided we are allowed to have that number of people in the classroom, we will be there, the faculty will be there, you will be there, and we will be getting as close to normal as we possibly can.
That's great, and sort of it's great to have that to look forward to. So Hannah, we got a question in the Q&A about the transition, what the transition's like from high school to college. And if you can remember way back to the start of your college career, what was that transition like for you? And how did college, or how did Holy Cross meet what your expectations were for what college might be like?
Definitely. So I am the oldest child in my family. So I was the first one going to college. I didn't have any older siblings to have any insight. So I was pretty nervous, I think, as many of you may be too. And I went to a pretty small high school. So again, coming to Holy Cross is a big step up. And I was very lucky with my random roommate. She's actually one of my good friends right now. So Res Life, as some of you may know, everyone comes in and primarily everyone will do a random roommate. And the perk of that is you will get to meet somebody new. And though that may be a little scary, especially I've never shared a room with somebody because I have 2 little brothers, it was pretty nerve-wracking, but you get in there and Holy Cross makes it so easy, especially in the beginning. There's a lot of activities that are going around on campus, whether they're indoors or outdoors, or even if some are going to be virtual this year. Holy Cross has made such an effort to make sure students are engaged on campus and off campus, both within our campus community, but also in the Worcester community as well. I also think your professors are a huge resource when you first come to Holy Cross. You'll have your RAs and your Res Life community, but your academic community is going to be very important. I think college classes are definitely a step up from your high school classes. And having your professors there and your amazing class dean, Professor Petty, there as resources is going to be really helpful. I know I had a couple of my professors freshman year, and they were incredible professors. One of them, my history professor, I came to Holy Cross, and as Professor Petty mentioned, like your 4th class can be your kind of random, maybe interested in that class, and that was a history class for me with Professor Ewell. If anyone can ever take a class with her, I highly recommend it. She's now my thesis advisor going into senior year, so that was my random class that I tried, and it absolutely took my breath away. I was in there and I loved it. So to echo what Professor Petty said, and to help with the transition too, if you're taking classes you're interested in, even if there's something you've never taken before, that's going to make the transition to those classes better, make your studying habits a little bit easier. So I guess summing it up, listen to your gut, take some classes you're interested in, and be willing to maybe put yourself in a bit of an uncomfortable situation to go to a club that you're interested in, and to say hi to someone down the hall, because it'll definitely pay off in the end.
Brianna, one of the things that, as Hannah mentioned, most students are most nervous about when it comes to coming to college is residential life. Living in a dorm, sharing a room, living with a bunch of strangers in a big building. Can you tell me what's so great about residential life at Holy Cross and what it's really like?
Yeah, of course. And I definitely would echo what Hannah said. I'm also the oldest and I only have brothers, so I had never shared a room with anyone. And I came in to a triple my first year at Holy Cross, and it was something that I don't know, people hype up a little bit. And I was definitely nervous because I was thinking to myself, I don't know either of these people particularly well, and we're sharing a pretty small space for a year. But I will say that it was one of the best experiences I had my first year. The three of us are still good friends. We don't live together now, but we still hang out and we still see each other on campus all the time. And something that I think is really nice about first year housing, particularly, is that typically you'll live by Montserrat clusters. So you'll see these people in your classes and you'll have things in common with them. And the other thing too is it's random, but it's not entirely random. So you do get to fill out a form over the summer before coming to Holy Cross with just some basic habits like when you like to go to bed, when you like to wake up, how you like to keep the temperature in your room, and things about like organization and stuff like that, so that our residence life team does pair you with someone who has similar living habits as you, which is nice in terms of easing into that transition of living in a new space with a new person. But what they don't do necessarily is match you by perfect interest. I know, coincidentally, both of my roommates were in the same Montserrat, but I was in a different one. But all three of us were in the same cluster. So we had similar classes, but they were different. So that's an easy conversation topic. And you'll be going to campus events together, and you'll be going to the common room to see your classmates together. And all of the RAs in the first year area too are very involved in terms of like putting on programs for you guys to do things together, get to know each other better. And there's so many resources either in the building or in the class area, whether it's orientation leaders from the fall gateways or your RA or a different RA in the building. There's always someone for you to go to if you have questions, concerns, and everyone's trying to just help make that the best, easiest community building experience possible.
So one of the things that we're hitting on here, Kevin, is this idea that when you're a high school student, you apply to a college, you do all your research, you have a certain set of expectations and also a certain set of nerves that comes with being new again. Like, and for some students, it's the first time they've been new since kindergarten sometimes. So you're new this year, and it's an unusual year in that. Can you tell me what you were nervous about coming into your first year at Holy Cross, and how those nerves have been how you've handled those nerves throughout this year?
Yeah, I was definitely nervous for coming into college. Obviously, I chose Holy Cross because I really liked it and I felt very secure in that decision. It has been the best decision that I feel that I have made in my life so far. It's a perfect school for me. And I hope it is for you if you continue to look into it. I was really nervous for the experience. I was nervous for dorming. I was nervous for classes. I wasn't sure what the level of difficulty was going to be for a college class coming from high school. And I was very nervous about building a community, building a group of friends, people that I'd be able to connect with. And those have obviously been amplified. Those were amplified by our current situation. But in terms of dorming, I have had a really great experience so far. Everyone in the hall has been, the community that is built in the residence halls is truly special. And I think that's something that is it carried through throughout the Holy Cross community. I think that's something that most of the students, when I was even a senior, when people talked about Holy Cross, the thing they mentioned was that it was the community that made it so excellent. And I've definitely found that. And so I went random for my roommate. It has been a perfect match. We have managed to become close friends. We go to dinner all the time. His friends are my friends. And we also, we leave the door open, and people will pop in and say hello while they're, walking down the hallway. And so the community definitely has been excellent in terms of residence life. And then for academics, excellent. I have only positive things to say, and really that's all I got for my first semester here. There wasn't really a true community. I wasn't on campus. Everyone was home. So, that's all I could enjoy, and I loved it. The classes here are excellent. They're so interesting. The professors are so passionate about what they study and what they teach. And if you go to office hours or even just asking questions in class, professors love to talk about the things that they themselves have chosen to pursue. And they are totally there to offer your support. There are so many resources for many things, but in terms of academics, there are so many resources to help you out. And especially the professors are definitely there to make sure that you are comfortable and that everything is going smoothly. And the community aspect has been probably the best thing so far since being on campus. And I believe that it's going to be something that's going to be especially special for you guys as you go into your first year, because not only do you go into college knowing that, oh, I have to introduce myself, I have to say hi to this person, let's get a group together, let's go down to the dining hall, let's go to the campus center. But especially after being cooped up in our houses for so long, that need for community, that need for friendship, and is going to be so amplified, and it has already. And once we move towards this new normal, I know it's going to be even better. Being able to go to sports games, go to performances, and just truly being able to get the Holy Cross experience that I have, and hopefully you will be looking for. So
I'm looking forward to it too, Kevin. Thanks. Professor Petty, one of the things that's so interesting about Montserrat is frankly, just the names of these classes. So I want to ask, from a professor's point of view, where do these topics come from? Number one. And number two, what do professors like so much about Montserrat?
That's a great question. It is. So I think as professors, right, we are all trained in very, very specific disciplines. We all have our scholarly work that is very, very focused. And often the classes that we teach aren't really that focused on those things, right? The classes that we teach, certainly from my perspective, my research is in a very, very narrow field of biophysical chemistry, but I teach general classes in intro chem and quantum mechanics and things that aren't really born out of my own work. And the nice thing about Montserrat is that we get to choose what we're teaching. Right? Someone in my department has to teach intro chem. Someone in my department has to teach organic chemistry. But if we're asked, does anybody want to teach a course in Montserrat? We can envisage anything we want for that. We can pick something that we've always been fascinated by. We can pick something that's really, really focused on our own research, as long as we can make that accessible to people who haven't had, 4 or 5 years of chemistry already. And so I think from a professor's perspective, picking the topic, it usually comes from something that they're very passionate about, something that they've always been interested in and either have been studying for a very long time or have never had the opportunity to. So as Hannah mentioned, the course that I taught when I taught in Montserrat was about color. And color links very closely to a very narrow area of chemistry that I had done a little bit about, but hadn't really had a chance to explore more deeply. And it was a wonderful experience for me. I gave myself the summer to prep for it. I didn't take any research students that summer because I really wanted to focus on making sure that I really had done my work on this, that I really fully understood the topic. And it was so interesting for me. I think the other thing that's really, really exciting for us as faculty when we get to teach in Montserrat is the opportunity to work with students that we would never normally get to work with. So as a couple of the students mentioned, we do very strongly encourage you to think about a Montserrat class that is nothing like what you want to major in. There are a couple of exceptions to that, but for the most part, if you come in knowing you want to major in English, you're going to be advised to take something that is absolutely nothing to do with writing English essays and reading English literature. If you know you want to be on the pre-health track, you know you want to do something in the sciences, we're going to suggest that you take your Montserrat in philosophy or in sociology or in art or something completely different. And so for me, when I'm teaching this, I'm not used to seeing students who are so passionate about history and about art and things like that. That's just not the kind of student that I typically would see in a quantum mechanics class. So it's a wonderful opportunity for us to work with different groups of students and frankly, to see those groups of students come together in a way that doesn't happen as much in the class that you're taking in your major, because you're approaching it in such a more open manner, and seeing those relationships develop is really, really exciting for us.
Hannah, one of the things that students are usually most curious and also most nervous about is that, right, that residential component of being a part of a community. But I think sometimes what they don't know is all the great campus traditions and on-campus events and student life. Can you tell me, do you have a particular favorite student life event or on-campus event or tradition that you always look forward to?
Yeah, well, aside from going to different sports games and performances, I think something that's really nice about Holy Cross is right off the bat, you're going to meet students who are interested and involved in all different kinds of things. So even in my first year, I knew somebody in my class who was in the musical, or I knew somebody in my class who was on the football team. And then you already have these connections with all different parts of campus. So aside from going to games and performances, a cappella shows, one event that I love that has come back even this semester, safely with COVID, but we're food truck Fridays and different food trucks coming to campus. There's a couple popular ones that, like the Dog Father, which is a hot dog truck, and there's sometimes a Ben and Jerry's one that comes a few times a year. But in the fall, and I think typically when it's warm out, even in the spring semester, but they have food trucks that come around the Hovel, which is like our big oval grass that's right in front of the Hogan Campus Center. And they come on Friday nights, and you can just swing by and go, and it's really a fun activity. And even now with COVID, now that it's warming up, it's a great outdoor activity that we've been able to have a couple days now. I think trucks have come, and it's great because then you're sitting outside. A lot of people will sit on the grass in front of Hogan on the Hovel, or sit on the Kimball quad when these trucks come, and just seeing people outside. I think it's kind of a quintessential college thing. You see people on the quad and eating their food, and it's a great way to get outside and see people and have some new food. A lot of them are local Worcester places too, which is kind of fun.
How about you, Brianna? Do you have a favorite food truck at Food Truck Fridays, or another favorite campus tradition or part of student life?
I definitely have a favorite food truck. There's a whoopie pie food truck that comes sometimes. And the thing I like about that one is I have a lot of food allergies, but they have a whoopie pie that I can eat. So really a lot of love for the whoopie pie people when they come to campus. But other than the food, I think one of my favorite Holy Cross traditions is, we haven't been able to have it this year, but in years past, around holiday seasons and before breaks, the Kimball meals are like next level. The Kimball holiday dinner before we go home for winter break is one of my favorite days to be on campus. It gets all decorated. There's lights, there's music, there's a Christmas tree that goes up, and all of the food is so good. And there's this crazy beautiful like dessert thing with hot chocolate and whipped cream and hot cider, and it's like every holiday food you could ever imagine. And it's just like everyone goes. I never see Kimball as packed as I do on Thanksgiving dinner, before we go home for Thanksgiving break, and then the holiday dinner before winter break, and midnight breakfast during final exams. Just these really awesome events that the dining services put on for us that are just like such great community times, where pretty much the whole campus you will find at Kimball, which is really great.
All right, Hannah, let's talk about the classroom and I think one of the things that high school students are so often nervous about is how different the college classroom will be. Let's put their minds at ease a little bit. Other than Professor Petty, can you tell me about a favorite professor you've had during your time at Holy Cross?
Well, it's probably a good thing that I have to think for a minute. There's been a lot of really great ones, but I actually already mentioned her. Her ears are probably ringing, but Professor Ewell, she's a history professor. And I came into Holy Cross actually thinking I was going to be a psychology major. So I was taking an intro psych class my first semester freshman year, but I was also taking Professor Ewell's history class, and it was called U.S. Social Movements. And it was actually in the history department, they have specific courses. They're called themes classes. And it's pretty unique because they're just first year student classes. And that's really special because it's almost like a continuation of Montserrat. Most classes at Holy Cross are pretty much all of their classes, I think, are all different grades mixed together. But the history themes classes, it was all first year students. And Professor Ewell really stood out to me because she was so focused on everybody knowing each other's names, which sounds a little silly, but she was like, from the beginning, everybody's going to know each other's names. You want to say hi to each other when you're in Kimball, when you're in Dinan. And there's that emphasis on community building that really stood out to me. But a little bit like Professor Perry was saying with Montserrat is I was so shocked and amazed by how passionate she was about what she was teaching. She came in so excited every single day to class, and that made us excited. Like whenever someone's talking about something they're passionate about, and you see that smile on their face, it really, really engages the class. And she had, every day we came in and she had different music playing from the certain period of the certain movement we were studying. We watched films, we had readings, so all the different things that we did. It wasn't, I never felt bored in that class, and that was also really cool. She also always assigned us, there were 2 different times during the semester where she assigned us different group projects just based on getting to know each other. And it was called our intellectual autobiography, and we had to chat with each other about it, and it was really interesting. So I could talk all day about her. She's an incredible professor. She's brilliant. But yes, definitely Professor Ewell in the history department.
Professor Petty, obviously, a lot of our accepted students are excited about Montserrat. Many of them are asking in the Q&A about when they will see the options for this year. Can you just give us any sense of what you have about when those courses might be available?
I don't know exactly when yet. There's a lot, obviously, that goes into planning all of these. I know that it will be soon. It should be in the next few weeks. And I know that because all of the other courses are being populated very soon, which means that faculty must be starting to figure out what classes they are teaching. So at some point in the next few weeks, they are going to be releasing those course titles and clusters and things like that for you to start thinking about. And you will have until the end of, or middle to end of July is usually when the deadline is for submitting your list of courses. I'm not sure exactly when that's going to be yet. It's usually soon after Gateways, but Gateways is not usually virtual. So we're still making a few plans for that. But you will have plenty of time to look at those and to think about those, but they should be coming your way pretty soon.
Kevin, one of the questions that high school students have, and you probably had this as well, is how hard is college going to be? You know, it's going to be different. It's going to be harder. You're new to this. This is still your first year. Can you talk about how hard Holy Cross classes have been and what the level has felt like to you?
Absolutely. To be honest, it's not that different. I was really nervous going in, but the transition has been very easy. I think we have this sort of movie idea of going into classes and, there's going to be crazy equations on the board, and sometimes there are, but they, they explain them so well. And, I was very nervous about it, but it's something that the professors know the level that you're at. They have high expectations, but they really, really, really want you to succeed, and they really want to help you to get to understand the concepts. You know, most of my professors do office hours many times throughout the week, and there's students who are always in there, and they're so willing. They love to have a conversation with you about different things that, you know, you might just have questions on, or even if you just want to, you know, say hello. They love doing that and being able to establish a connection with your professor. You know, as Hannah mentioned, she has a mentor in her professor that she met her freshman year, and I think that is, you know, as I mentioned, they really want to help you. It is not that different than I would say most of your senior classes are going to be. I think all classes come with their own set of challenges, but you know, if you work hard and you know, not too hard, make sure that you take time to relax and enjoy your first year experience. But you know, if you do the work and you come to class prepared and you participate and engage with other students, then you're really going to have a really wonderful time and a really easy time transitioning into college life.
Okay, so I'm going to go around the horn here with a quick rapid fire. I want to hear everyone's answer. And if your answer is the same, that's fine. But favorite spot on campus and why? Let's go Hannah, and then Brianna, and then Professor Petty, and then Kevin.
My favorite spot on campus is the plaza, and I don't know the name of the plaza, and I feel terrible, but the plaza in between Fenwick, O'Kane, and Smith. There's a beautiful fountain in the middle, and especially during the summer, there's the green ivy all around. And it's a great spot to sit or have lunch or do work. Memorial Plaza. Thank you, Brianna.
My favorite spot on campus, or at least one of my favorite spots on campus, is right near Memorial Plaza, but it's probably the music library, which is in the Brooks, like concert building right across from the chapel. I just love kind of sitting in there between classes and getting a little bit of work done. They have like lots of plants in the windows, and the light comes in, and it's like nice and warm in there, and it's kind of cozy, and it's not too quiet, but it's also obviously it's still a library, so it's not loud, but you can hear people playing instruments like softly from the practice rooms while you're in there too. And I can't play an instrument, but I love the sound of them. So it's one of the most like peaceful, calming background noises to have while you're trying to get a little work done in between classes. And it's like right in the center of campus, so it's pretty accessible to get to.
I just had to change my virtual background. This is my favorite place on campus. This is right out front of the science building. We didn't have this building when I started at Holy Cross. The building is so beautiful. We have some fabulous new labs in there. I love to be inside it. I love to be outside it. All of the stonework and the planting they have out there is so beautiful. It's such a nice place to relax. And right inside the door is the Science Cafe, and they have the best chocolate chip cookies in the world. So there's nothing to not love about being right there.
And I would say that my favorite spot is honestly the drive on Linden Lane up to the main buildings on campus. That was the first thing I saw when I, you know, was first introduced to campus. And even when you're on the highway and you see the campus on your left as you drive in, I just think that initial glimpse of campus has always been the thing that stuck with me most.
Okay, we got another question in the Q&A. We'll do rapid fire here again around the horn. Hannah, favorite Holy Cross food item?
Ooh, okay, I have two. Either a grilled cheese from the Science Cafe that Professor Petty mentioned, or there's these veggie empanadas in Kimball that they've been serving a bunch this year. And I'm a huge, huge fan of those. I'll get them every single time, multiple times a week. I don't even mind.
I'm gonna go with Kimball. Breakfast as a whole is one of my favorites. Breakfast is like by far my favorite meal to have in there, but also, and like this sounds really boring, but Kimball's sweet potatoes are so good, and they have them every day, and I would eat them like 3 times a day if I could.
Obviously, I already said, right, the chocolate chip cookies from the Science Cafe, but on top of that, it would have to be the mac and cheese from Kimball. I don't get to eat there very often, but anytime my son is with me on campus, he has to go to Kimball for the cheeseburgers because he's 9. And when you're 9, anywhere that gives you unlimited cheeseburgers is a good place. And I cannot resist their mac and cheese. It is the best mac and cheese ever.
And I'm going to have to echo both Hannah and Brianna because the grilled cheese from the Science Cafe is my favorite lunch so far. And breakfast for dinner has been the most fun dinner that I've had on campus so far.
Since Professor Petty stole my mac and cheese answer, I'm going to say the donuts on campus. I'm a little bit of a donut snob, but the Holy Cross donuts are exceptional. And I will travel far for a good donut. And thankfully, I don't have to because I work at Holy Cross. So I want to go around the horn with one more question. And yeah, I'll start with Hannah. One more question for everybody. Hannah, how has, I don't know, how have you felt community at Holy Cross?
I have felt community most in, it sounds silly, but in kind of passing moments. I went to a pretty small high school, and I think when I left, I was confident that I knew most of the people there, and I saw people in the hallways all the time, and that really was a sense of comfort and a sense of community. And I think I found that, or I know I found that at Holy Cross too, and seeing friends or acquaintances or professors in passing. I think it's such a nice feeling, and being on a small campus together. I hope you all find this as well, that you'll see familiar faces, and then you're not even just community within your room or within your classes, but it's a community across the whole campus. And I think that's a really special feeling.
Somewhere I've found community at Holy Cross is in the relationships I've been able to build with professors. I think something really special about Holy Cross is when you go into office hours for a professor for a particular class, they know where you sit. They know your name, they know what class you're in, and you don't have to kind of remind them every time you go in who you are and why you're there. And they'll ask about your day and kind of chat with you about more than just the class you're taking. And those really close, like personal relationships you're able to build with professors is good for in a working sense because it allows you to really figure out who you may want to work with later in your time as a student. I know Hannah mentioned it earlier, but I had a similar experience with a professor who is now one of my thesis advisors, and just like getting to know them on a personal level and kind of what they're passionate about and what you're passionate about. But I think that's definitely a way I've found community is just those real relationships you're able to build with your professors.
Brianna, it's so great to hear you say that because I was actually going to cite the same sort of thing, but obviously from the other perspective. When the video went out, I'm sure a few of you have seen this on Facebook and on Twitter this week, the sort of meet your class dean. What really struck me about the community at Holy Cross is how many of my former students have reached out to me to say congratulations, to say, we're so happy for you, we're so happy for your class. I've heard from students that graduated in 2007, 2008, that were in my very first classes that I taught at the college. And I actually spoke with one of them on Friday. He came back to Holy Cross. He didn't come back. He logged into a Zoom to give a seminar to the chemistry students. And he's in Singapore right now, this student. And he got up at 3 o'clock in the morning to give this seminar for our current students because he wanted them to benefit from his experience. And we finished the seminar around 4:30 in the morning for him. And he and I stayed on Zoom chatting for another 45 minutes about everything he's done and all the things that have changed for him. And so I would absolutely agree. I think the relationships that students form with faculty that last throughout their 4 years here and then for many, many years after that, that gives you a support network and it gives you a community that is always a part of you, always a part of you.
Definitely. And I would say that the thing that I have found most similar to what Professor Petty was just saying is that people who go and are associated with Holy Cross love talking about Holy Cross. I mean, I've only been here for a few months, but I can't tell you how many times I have had a conversation with someone or spoken on the phone with someone, and I've mentioned that I go to Holy Cross, and they say, oh my gosh, I know someone who goes there. My daughter went here, or I went here. And, you know, when I was in high school, the two teachers who talked about their college were two teachers who went to Holy Cross. And everyone, I just feel the students here love being here. They love the community, and it's a community for life. And that's something that really drew me to the college, is that I'd always be sort of a part of this family that is constantly being woven together on campus.
Thanks to all of you. Thanks to all of our panelists. Thanks to all of our accepted students. Sorry we didn't have a chance to get to everyone's questions tonight, but we have many more webinars coming up in the next couple of weeks. Please check out the website. You're going to see a great list of webinar topics coming soon. Study abroad, academic departments, pre-professional programs, community service, the Alumni Network, great programs coming up over the next couple of weeks. Please check out all the options on the Accepted Students websites. Again, congratulations. Have a great night. Please stay in touch and please stay safe.